The Patterson Gimlin film is a hoax. The truth has finally come out from the Patterson family themselves. Patricia and Clint Patterson weigh in on the matter. The world is thrown into chaos. Dogs and cats living together. Mass hysteria. All that and more on tonight's episode of Southeast Bigfoot Research Organization. Hi, I'm Kizario Wakora. I'm joined here by Jaster Lane Wynn.
Hi, how's it going, guys?
And our boy Matt Smith.
Hello, hello.
And we are coming at you with a off-the-cuff emergency recording, as a bombshell of a documentary has just dropped at South by Southwest.
Yeah, it's a wild week here in Bigfoot world. We've got
It really is.
the biggest Bigfoot sighting spree in 50 years is happening in Ohio, and at the same time, apparently the biggest piece of evidence in the world of Bigfoot is being debunked across the country out in California, roughly at the same time. So, Kaz, you gave us the info on this one, so can you go ahead and run with it and see what... Just tell us, bring us up to speed on what's going on.
All right, so for those who don't know, South by Southwest is a film festival that runs every year over in... oh, my bad. In Austin, not in California. And it takes place every year in March, and they've been doing it annually since 1987. It's a pretty big shindig. If you're an independent filmmaker looking to get something premiered, this is like the place to do it at. A rather experienced documentarian and filmmaker, Mark Evans, has just released a film called Capturing Bigfoot. Mark Evans has worked on other things such as The Glamour and the Squalor, The Diamond King, and Clay Dream. And this is his latest project, where he kind of centers in on the Patterson Gimlin film and everything that surrounds it, which includes the lives of Roger Patterson, other people like Bob Hieronymus, and as well as some other characters that you might not have heard of if you aren't totally in the know like we are. Which is to say, if you don't spend all day looking up Bigfoot shit.
Spending entirely too much time at night instead of sleeping, listening to the stories of people from like 30, 50 years ago.
Exactly.
Amen to that.
But,
So,
go ahead.
we've been a little shaken up today because it is alleged. We only have word from people who were at the festival where it premiered, I believe last night, which as of this recording is March 12th, 2026, but I heard about the news this morning on the 13th, that the film has a new piece of footage in it from 1966 that was recorded on 45mm film of Roger Patterson and another co-conspirator doing a dry run with a suit that allegedly is the same as the suit, what is supposed to be a suit in the PG film in elsewhere in the country. The reason why this is a big deal is because Clint Patterson, his son, and Patricia Patterson, his wife, have commented on it and have confirmed that the footage in the film is genuine and that the whole thing is an elaborate hoax. Now, it's worth noting that the PG film has been shot at for literally years. I remember even when I was a kid, there were specials dedicated solely to trying to debunk it. Athletic experts, biology experts, computer graphics experts, minds from all kinds of disciplines came together, and nobody could ever pin it down. Whether it was because the walk cycle was strange, or there was too much noise on the footage, or anything like that. And for the longest time, it has been the cornerstone of Bigfooting, even when all else is in doubt, and we always had something to point to. Our holy grail, the shining beacon of truth that we all believed in and we staked our faith on. But now it's coming out, not even that might be real. And it's been a bit grim here at the office.
So, I think one thing that we kind of need to throw out here for everybody is that when you say that there's been a lot of shots taken at the Patterson Gimlin film over the years, we are not talking about cheap endeavors, okay? We're talking about elaborate stories just as crazy as some of the Ed, Edd and Eddy skits you used to see when you were growing up as kids. Okay? Truly wicked stuff. Like Bob Hieronymus, for instance, claimed to be the man in the suit, right? I think this also gets to be a part of the story in the documentary as well. But apparently this man was the guy in the suit. Apparently he had the suit. He said that for years, okay? And then it turns out when he finally revealed the suit, the shit looked phony. Real phony, okay? To the point where people were making memes about it.
Ladies and gentlemen, we got him.
There were people that were, like you said, biologists, athletic experts. We had people that were experts in film, experts in costume effects, that were saying that this stuff's a hoax. But also, for every one of those, you've got somebody on the other side of the field that's also willing to risk their professional reputation as doctors on saying, this is real. Like Dr. Jeff Meldrum spent most of his career and his life betting on this film, betting on the evidence surrounding it, because it wasn't just the film itself. There were also footprint casts that were collected from the area that had dermal ridges that you can't really fake. And then the other thing is that this came out in 1967, okay? This isn't like a modern thing where you can get a suit that looks like something from Planet of the Apes or Rise of the Planet of the Apes with a CG set or something like that. Like, the tech required for this suit has been stated by experts in Hollywood that worked at Universal and Disney in their costume departments as being, if it being a suit, it would have been the most elaborate and high-tech suit they have ever seen, and the tech did not exist at the time to their knowledge. So what does that mean? Okay, we've got experts on both sides saying, both competing for different things. This is real. It's not real. We've got people saying, I was the guy behind the suit, but then that is the goofiest story I've seen in a while. And now we've got people behind the Patterson Gimlin film, the family behind it, stating that it was fake, and they've got evidence, correct? So what I've seen whenever I've looked at the movie reviews so far is that there seems to be, like you said, Kaz, essentially a prototype movie for something that would come out later. And I'll put the name of the film up there later. It was actually something that was released, like a fantasy film about capturing Bigfoot. And
it got reworked for one.
Exactly. And then apparently this film had the prototype shot that would later be reshot and repackaged into the Patterson Gimlin film. So we'll see whenever that comes out exactly how true that is, and if the suit in this film is the same suit as the Patterson Gimlin film. Now, I think the other thing that we kind of have to think about here is that there is a lot more going on behind the scenes here than just the people saying that this is real, this isn't real, I was in the movie, I wasn't in the movie, right? Me and Kaz have talked about this at length, but there is a huge financially backed story behind the Patterson Gimlin film that not many people know about. Did you know that Patterson Gimlin, the people behind the movie, the people with the name on the movie, and their family, has made exactly $0 off of the film and all of the preceding things that happened afterwards? That's 100% true. Apparently, one of the people in this group, I believe his name is Diatley, and he was the brother-in-law of Roger Patterson. This guy was the business mind behind the entire operation. He didn't really care.
It was Al Diatley. That was his name.
Gotcha. So, this guy didn't really care about Bigfoot. He cared about money. And from what we understand and all of the reports on this behind the scenes, this guy was not a very cool character, okay? He was more of like the Doug Dimmadome type of the town. Ran a failing asphalt business, from what we understand, and he was using this as an opportunity to dig himself out of debt. And whenever the Patterson Gimlin film came out, he took complete rights over the film, funneled all of the money into his own bank account, bought a giant mansion that apparently is being unveiled in this movie, and then screwed off into the sunset and left everybody else screwed. No money. And no legal ramifications could be taken against this guy. So there's a lot of bad blood here, and that's something that also gets brought up a lot in this movie according to the review. This is a lot more of a emotionally driven narrative from what we can understand right now, as far as like ethos and logos, as far as a persuasive tactic. It is much more of a ethos driven narrative, and it goes into a lot of the personal stories and the burnt bridges and family ties that goes in behind the scenes of the film. And a lot of this is riding on whether or not this video at the end is legitimate or not. However, from what me and Kaz can understand of what all of the film reviews have came out of it, the skeptics in the Bigfoot community are basically now already signaling the funeral of the Patterson Gimlin film. They are completely convinced that this is what the story was behind the film. Patterson Gimlin faked it. We can all go home. However, what we want to talk about is that there is a much more money-motivated reason to have this conversation, right? And that muddies the water quite a bit. And without definitive evidence of this being a fake, what this could possibly be as well is an opportunity for the Patterson family and the Gimlin family to start making some amount of money off of the film that their fathers made, what?
60 years ago.
60 years ago?
Because the film was in 1967.
Yeah.
And it's currently 2026.
So, like, they've never seen a cent from that. And that film took over their father's lives.
It did.
And from what we understand of this film, Clint Patterson idolized his father, and his father was obsessed with Sasquatch. So there might be an emotional and monetary backed reason for the Patterson family to make this sort of a hit piece against the film that their family had made and just absolutely blew up the entire world. Now, I don't know how you all feel about that. So, Myth, what are you, like, let's go ahead and pass the torch to you real quick. What's your thoughts so far on the situation, and do you have any questions?
So, as an outsider looking in, because I'm brand new into the world of Bigfoot and I'm learning so many different things at one time, I am going to choose to remain indecisive on how I feel about this until I have more information on the matter. Like, if it is critically obvious that it's a hoax, I would genuinely hope that there would be a genuine, thorough explanation as to what was the motivation to falsify this in the first place. Does that make sense?
Yeah, and so Kaz, maybe you want to explain this, like the Todd standing effect, I think we're going to call it. Like,
I have to say, I think Myth has a pretty level-headed take here. I was really curious what he would say because, well, in this last week, he went from being, a skeptic and kind of learning about the world of Squatch and Bigfooting to all of a sudden the biggest flap of sightings in 50 years and planning to go talk to somebody who had an encounter within the span of a week, which is a lot to take in.
Yes, it is.
For me, who has, had Squatch mania on the brain since I was in elementary school, reading all the books on the special interest shelf at the back of the library, I have a lot of mixed feelings. On one hand, in some ways, this film was comforting to me, and I think anybody who is really into Bigfooting kind of knows what I'm talking about. Where it's a very familiar piece of footage, like an old friend, every single frame of that film is probably burned into the back of your eyelids. And if you're really crazy, you know the exact frame that Patty looks across at Bob and Roger and then continues on her merry way.
Yeah.
We have it in the introduction sequence of Sebro. There's a lot of artwork out there based on it. It is the de facto symbol of Bigfoot. It is not only dug into the community, but also into the popular conscious. When you say Bigfoot, the PG film is the first thing people think of. And all of a sudden, now this massive, monumental piece of footage, the second most analyzed piece of film right after the Zapruder film, has suddenly been disproven. It's akin to tearing down a national monument. For me, I feel a sorrow I haven't felt since I was a kid, and I found out the surgeon's photograph, which was the alleged only photograph of the Loch Ness Monster, was fake and made with a model submarine and the neck of a toy dinosaur. But in other ways, I was emotionally prepared for this. In recent years, the narrative around the PG film has come more into question as small snippets here and there came out, and people became more serious about analyzing it and picking it apart as technology has advanced. And while there are some who are making some interesting claims about it, there are others who have become a bit more, intensive in their analysis. And this was all kind of coming to a head. This was bound to happen eventually, assuming it is in fact a hoax. Yes, Virginia, there is a Santa Claus, and there is also a Bigfoot. While the film itself may be debunked, I am putting that in bold italics, underlining that, and circling it. That's a very heavy word right there. May. The myth is not dead. There are still tons of sightings happening every day, and there are other pieces of evidence that we still have no explanation for, such as the Sierra sounds, which I guess is now going to be my new my new magic bullet in arguments.
Agreed.
So, it's not like Bigfooting is dead, but I think the initial spark that lit the flame for a lot of people has finally fizzled out and died, and that is something to mourn.
But I don't think the silhouette symbols of Bigfoot on merch is going anywhere.
Oh no!
Like, I don't think Patty is really going anywhere in the national, what's the word I'm looking for, in the national paradigm of Bigfoot. And honestly, I don't know if people are going to be 100% convinced about what's going to be released in Capturing Bigfoot. From what we understand, the movie itself kind of allows for both narratives to be equally represented. Like, there's people in the movie like Dr. Jeff Meldrum and a costume designer that are saying, hey, this is more than likely real. Like, we're not sure about this entire film thing, but there are other bits of evidence from that area and that time period that corroborate the film that can't be faked. And they're willing to put their reputations on that. And then there's people on the other side that are saying, hey, we know the people behind the film, we know the story behind the film, and we have a prototype film that shows a similar scene to the Patterson Gimlin film. We don't know for sure if it has the suit in it or not, if it's the same suit or not. Like, that wasn't explicitly said.
Or if the film has even dug up the suit and shown it to everybody.
Like, that could be it.
Yeah.
But one review I said, and I quote, there is no aha moment to the film. Like, so I don't know, that to me that says that they probably don't have the costume. Which, in order for there to be a hoax theory being true, there has to be a dude in a suit, right? That's the whole story behind all of them, is that there was a dude in the suit. So where's the suit? Like, where's the receipt for the suit? because somebody had to make it. They had to buy it from somebody, right? Or they had to get the materials for it from somewhere, right? Where's anything to do with the suit? We've never seen it. Okay? If there's one piece of evidence that would probably put the nail in the coffin of the Patterson Gimlin film, it would be the suit. And I'm not sure if it's in this film. We're going to see, and we're going to do a follow-up video on that. So, what else do we have here? So, like, the other thing that I do want to mention is that... Oh, sorry. Kaz, you want to go on ahead? Seem like you got something?
So, what we do have here is that prototype piece of footage, which in and of itself is based on an existing sworn affidavit. So, in Mark Evans' documentary, there is what is known as the Patterson Gimlin Film, which was shot in May 1966 in the South Fork of the Tanum Valley in Yakima, Washington. It was an attempt at a fictional film featuring Roger Patterson, Bob Hieronymus, Howard Hieronymus, John Ballard, Jerry Merritt, all as cowboys, with Bob Gimlin as a native tracker, as well as another character who was an unnamed prospector, tracking Bigfoot to a mystical mountain where they encountered a creature. Now, the reason why this is important is because it is a known fact that Roger Patterson got involved with the subject of Bigfoot after he read 2 articles written by Ivan T. Sanderson in December 1959 and March 1960 issues of True magazine, detailing and illustrating alleged Bigfoot encounters. And in this case, it was the latter 1960 issue of the magazine that detailed what is now regarded as a classic story by some of the older Bigfooters, but I don't think this has really been talked about in modern parlance, so we'll bring it up here. An encounter that a gentleman in Canada named William Rowe had, that he wrote a sworn affidavit about. Tell me if you've heard this one before. A man is out with a handful of other people out in the wilderness when he sees a retreating female Sasquatch.
Oof. Go on.
So it is at this point I'm going to read out the contents of Rowe's affidavit. Starting here. I, William Rowe of the city of Edmonton, in the province of Alberta, make oath and say, 1. That the Exhibit A attached to this, my affidavit, is absolutely true and correct in all details. Sworn before me, in the city of Edmonton, province of Alberta, this 26th day of August, 1957. Signed, William Rowe. Signed by W.H. Clark, Assistant Claims Agent, number DD2822. Exhibit A. Ever since I was a small boy back in the forest of Michigan, I have studied the lives and habits of wild animals. Later, when I supported my family in northern Alberta by hunting and trapping, I spent many hours just observing the wild things. They fascinated me. But the most incredible experience I ever had with a wild creature occurred near a little town, I might butcher this, called Tetajaun Cache, British Columbia, about 80 miles west of Jaster, Alberta. I had been working on the highway near Tetajaun Cache for about 2 years. In October 1955, I decided to climb 5 miles up Mika Mountain to an old deserted mine just for something to do. Boy, that's how it was back in the 50s. I'm bored. I don't know, want to go to a mine?
Hey, I grew up in the woods. We did that.
Yep. I came inside of the mine about 3 o'clock in the afternoon after an easy climb. I had just come out of the patch of low brush into a clearing when I saw what I thought was a grizzly bear in the bush on the other side. I had shot a grizzly near that spot the year before. This one was about 75 yards away, but I didn't want to shoot it, for I had no way of getting it out. So I sat down on a small rock and watched, my rifle in my hand. I could see part of the animal's head in the top of one shoulder. A moment later, it rose up and stepped down to the opening. That was when I observed it was not a bear. This, to the best of my recollection, is what the creature looked like and how it acted as it came across the clearing directly toward me. It is worth noting that Rose had his daughter draw an illustration to go of this individual to go with the affidavit, which editing Jaster is going to throw up on the screen here.
Mm-hmm.
My first impression was of a huge man, about 6 feet tall, almost 3 feet wide, and probably weighing somewhere near 300 pounds. It was covered from head to foot with dark brown, silver-tipped hair, but as it came closer, I saw by its breasts that it was female. So, this is here where I'm going to pause on our reading of the affidavit. So, Myth, do you know about Patty's boobs?
No, I do not.
So that's one of the biggest things that everybody claims is the best evidence for why it's real on a photographic level, is because it was basically impossible to fake that level of clarity and definition of her breasts at that time in costume tech. And even today, it's hard to do.
Yeah, it is.
Like, how they nailed it is, like, if the Patterson Gimlin costume is real, like, they have to study that shit, because that's going to, like, propel costume tech, like, 50 years in the future.
Yeah, because, like, not even, like, synthetic breasts that are made for, like, costuming and cross-dressing are realistic. Like, unless they're totally covered, you can still tell they're fake. You know? So, like, imagining, hey, we made an ape costume with some tits on it in 1967.
Like, that's a
First
weird
off,
addition.
It's a very weird addition. But also, it's really hard to wrap your head around.
Like,
So,
why?
why? But yeah, no, if you ever go back and watch the Patty footage after this, which you probably will, I would pay attention to her chest when she is walking across the clearing and turns towards Roger and Bob, because you get a pretty good shot of them, if that is indeed what they are.
Now,
So,
the thing that kind of connects it here is that, like, this guy also seemed to have seen a female, right? There's a lot, and I mean a lot, of people that come forward and talk to interviewers about their sightings, and they're like, I can tell the gender of it because it was plainly obvious, easy to see. Like,
Right.
we make constant jokes in the office here about how, like, apparently one of the first things you notice about Bigfoot in a crossing sighting is how stacked this dude was. Okay, like, feeling
he's out there
insignificant.
free balling it in the woods.
And, like, one of the wildest interviews in Sasquatch Chronicles was from this woman from Great Britain who was vacationing, I believe, in British Columbia, and early in the morning she was just out on the beach and saw this family of Sasquatch, and the male was the one that noticed her, and he swung around, and she was just horrified about the package.
Yep.
It
Is that the
literally
one-
scarred her.
Is that the one where she says it looks like it was gliding down the beach that they use in the intro?
Yes, it
Yeah,
was
that's
that
what I
one.
thought. Okay. All right,
Literally
so I'm
scarred.
going to- yeah. I mean, if I saw something that big, I would definitely remember it for sure.
So, weirdly, it's something that people fixate on when they have a sighting, is if there's any gender-defining characteristics of the animal.
I wonder if there's like a psychological aspect to that.
I think it is, because I think, like, on a base level, when you're sizing up an animal, you're built to fear the male or the female more based on context clues. Like, the male might be more aggressive unless it's a female with young.
That's true.
So you might be, in the back of your brain, subconsciously trying to process that information for extra information. So
maybe.
that I don't know. But go ahead. There's still more to this affidavit that's
No,
really
yeah,
interesting.
absolutely. So we're going to get into the rest of the description of the Mika Mountain Sasquatch. And yet, its torso was not curved like a female's. Its broad frame was straight from shoulder to hip. Its arms were much thicker than a man's arms and longer, reaching almost to its knees. Its feet were broader proportionally than a man's, about 5 inches wide at the front and tapering to much thinner heels. When it walked, it placed the heel of its foot down first, and I could see the gray-brown skin or hide on the soles of its feet. So, pretty classical hallmarks from Sasquatch sightings that are popping up here. The odd way how they completely lift their feet off the ground and touch heel first. The elongated arms. It came to the edge of the bush I was hiding in, within 20 feet of me, and squatted down on its haunches. Reaching out its hand, it pulled the branch of the bushes toward it and stripped the leaves with its teeth. Its lips curled flexibly around the leaves as it ate. I was close enough to see that its teeth were white and even. Oh, that's really close. Oh my god. So I'm going to pause here and say this first sentence on this next paragraph is very of the time, and as such I am going to alter it to be a bit more less offensive.
Yeah, this is going to sound like a British exploration tale from the 1800s, real quick.
Because
If you want me to, I'll read it.
He's basically describing the conical nature of the creature's head, and he's using some phrenology terms. Let's go with that.
Yeah, like
so
50s.
Okay, yeah. So the head was higher at the back than at the front. The nose was broad and flat. I'm just gonna skip that first sentence altogether, honestly. I jumped right to the second sentence.
Dang, it's like the Huckleberry Finn of freaking Bigfoot reports.
The lips and chin protruded farther than its nose, but the hair that covered it, leaving bare only the parts of its face around the mouth, nose, and ears, made it resemble an animal as much as a human. None of this hair, even on the back of its head, was longer than an inch, and that on its face was much shorter. Its ears were shaped like a human's ears, but its eyes were small and black like a bear's, and its neck also was unhuman, thicker and shorter than any man's I had ever seen. As I watched the creature, I wonder if some movie company was making a film of this place, and that was when what I saw was an actor made up to look partly human and partly animal. But as I observed it more, I decided it would be impossible to fake such a specimen. Anyway, I later learned there was no such company near the area, nor in fact did anyone live up Mika Mountain according to the people who live in Tedajau and Cache. Finally, the wild thing must have got my scent, for it looked directly at me through an opening in the brush. A look of amazement crossed its face. It looked so comical at the moment I had to grin. Imagine that, you come face to face with a Sasquatch, it goes, "Oh shit, a human," and you're just smirking? Like,
oh man. Can I
what
also,
a moment.
Can I
like
also
that,
point out something? I'm sorry.
Yeah.
So,
no, go ahead.
Doesn't this kind of sound like the base description of the head of this animal reminds me a lot of the Todd standing, the face, like if you were to make a human costume face that would sound like what this report describes. I come back to the Todd standing photograph or videos, of him being like 2 feet away from one.
Yes.
It sounds a lot more like that, right? And I've always wondered, where did he get that? Like, maybe this is where he got the idea for that.
Absolutely.
Because that
Can
one's
I
goofy.
quickly add something?
Yes.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, so a lot of similarities have been drawn between a great ape and Bigfoot.
Yes.
It's a very common thing that great apes, just like chimpanzees, if they smile, it's not because they're friendly, it's because they're going to attack you. If man is derived from ape or monkey or whatever you want to consider it to be, I would imagine the Bigfoot would take that as a threat opposed to a gesture of, oh, this is okay.
Yeah,
so that's like
actually,
just throwing up a red flag for me.
Yeah, no, well, while we are on the topic of great apes, I would also like to mention the nature with how Rowe describes the Mika Mountain Sasquatch eating, because I have seen nature documentaries where gorillas and chimpanzees eat off of branches exactly like how he describes.
Exactly. And you want to kind of think to yourself, like, if this really is true and this is a real thing, a lot of people in the Bigfoot world are very divided on what the Bigfoot might actually be. Is it a great ape? Is it a relic hominid species that survived that we've never been able to make contact with? Because, like, the Native Americans call them hairy Indians in a lot of their, like, oral traditions, like one of a brother tribe, basically.
Yeah.
And there's another whole separate group that, like, we don't really like to talk about too much, that, like, talk about how it being an alien or a spirit or something, and it lives in their living room or in their trash can, whatever.
Right.
But there's a lot of people that think that a lot of different things about what Bigfoot is, but a lot of the reports that come across as a lot more genuine, a lot more scientific in nature, describe a creature much more in the category of great ape, in the way it works, the way it acts, the way it does things. A lot of people believe it's a herbivorous animal. Kind of depends on which region of the United States you're in if you believe that. Like a lot of people in the Northwest, where there's a temperate rainforest essentially up there, it makes sense for there to be a completely herbivorous primate up there. That you can eat all kinds of leaves up there, you know, but maybe not down where we live. You'd have to be omnivorous.
I still stand by the omnivorous opportunity scavenger.
And we've seen great apes eat meat on occasion, even though they're not necessarily meat eaters.
Exactly, so that's definitely a detail that really jumped out at me. So, picking back up from the affidavit, still in a crouch position, backed up 3 or 4 short steps, then straightened up to its full height and started to walk rapidly back the way it had come. For a moment, it watched me over its shoulder as it went, not exactly afraid, but as though it wanted no contact with anything strange. Sound familiar?
Yep.
What is the one shot from the PG film that everybody knows?
It coming up over its shoulder to look at him.
And then, what is the entire back part of the film as it gets off into the brush?
Yep.
It walking off and still looking over its shoulder.
I mean, we got it on the front end of every one of our episodes.
Yeah. The thought came to me that if I shot it, I would possibly have a specimen of great interest to scientists the world over. I had heard stories of the Sasquatch, the giant hairy Indians that live in the legends of British Columbia Indians, and also many claim are still in fact alive today, again, as he wrote it in the text. Maybe this was a Sasquatch, I told myself. I leveled my rifle. The creature was still walking rapidly away, again turning its head to look in my direction. I lowered the rifle. Although I have called the creature it, I felt now that it was a human being, and I knew I would never forgive myself if I killed it. Which, that is interesting in and of itself. Obviously, the more jaded would immediately jump and say, well, that's why he doesn't have a body on hand, you know, or anything like that. Me personally, I would be yelling that also if he said he shot it. Hunter's remorse is a thing that can happen to some people.
Also, mind, earlier in the affidavit, his original idea was that it was a bear, and he wasn't trying to shoot it in the first place because he had no way of getting it out of there.
Yeah.
So, like, I mean, I don't think that changes if it's a bear or a 400-pound monkey. You don't have a way of getting it out of there. You just don't. It ain't like he can magically conjure a horse or something to get it out. So, like, that could also be a part of it, you know? And then you just become a random guy that killed a Bigfoot. Like, we had a report earlier from Alaska where apparently a guy shot and killed a Sasquatch and had to leave it because of how far out he was from civilization, and he had to come back for it, and he couldn't ever find it.
Yeah.
So, like, that's a hard one. But go on ahead. You got more, I believe, right?
So, yes, there's still a little bit left. Just as it came to the other patch of brush, it threw its head back and made a peculiar noise that seemed to be half laugh and half language, in which I can only describe as a kind of whinny. You know what I'm thinking of now, Jaster? The Sierra sounds.
Yeah. But, I mean, like a whinny, like a horse almost kind of type of thing?
Well, yeah, but there's a couple noises in that sound like laughter.
Right. Or the Umatilla sounds.
Exactly, yeah. Let's see. Then it walked from the small brush into a stand of lodgepole pine. I stepped out in the opening and looked across the small ridge just beyond the pine to see if I could see it again. It came out on the ridge, a couple of 100 yards away from me, tipped its head back again, and again emitted the only sound I had heard it make. But what this half-laugh, half-language was meant to convey, I do not know. It disappeared then, and I never saw it again. So there's another classic Bigfoot trope, it crossing large distances in short amounts of time. I wanted to find out if it lived on vegetation entirely or ate meat as well, so I went down and looked for signs. I found it in 5 different places, and although I examined it thoroughly, could find no hair or shells of bugs or insects, so I believe it was strictly a vegetarian. I found one place where it had slept for a couple of nights under a tree. Now, the nights were cool up the mountain, at this time of year especially, and yet it had not used a fire. I found no sign that it possessed even the simplest of tools, nor a single companion while in this place. Whether this was a Sasquatch, I do not know. It will always remain a mystery to me unless another one is found. I hereby declare the above statement to be in every part true, to the best of my powers of observation and recollection. Signed, William Rowe. So, as mentioned earlier before, this was put in the March 1960 issue of True Magazine, and then later Ivan T. Sanderson, who had published it in True Magazine, collected it in what is considered by some to be the Bible of Bigfooting, Abominable Snowman Legend Come to Life, which is a book that Sanderson put out the following year in 1961.
And he's one of the, what I believe they call the four horsemen of Bigfoot. Like one of the first four big cryptozoologists that started the movement.
Mm-hmm.
Now, he's also one of the only ones that isn't really controversial. A lot of people equally respected the man.
Mm-hmm.
So, what do we have here with that one? We've got essentially in a report, a sworn affidavit in a court in Canada that sounds very similar, to put it mildly, to the Patterson Gimlin film, even down to the specimen. Now, there's extra things that are in this report that make me believe that what we have here is something legitimate as a sighting, as far as extra claims and evidence, like parts of the dude's description about its mannerisms, its actions, and what other things that it did, make me think that this dude saw something truly strange.
Absolutely.
Now, here's the other thing to get, okay? This is another part I want to really get across here, is even if the Roger Patterson film is a recreation, essentially, of this sworn affidavit that was repackaged as a film meant to be its own actual sighting as a hoax film, what was the purpose of that, right? So, I don't like to take shots, right? So, we're going to take a little bit of some shots because I think the point needs to be made, okay? Is that a lot of people in the Bigfoot community either really love or really hate Todd Standing, okay? He's kind of a modern person in the Bigfoot world. He's also from Canada, and he has a large research area out in the wilderness out there. And he claims to have a lot of reported sightings and a lot of activity and a lot of helicopters in the area. And a lot of issues and run-ins with the Canadian government up there. Now, the things is, if you look into the filmography of the man, into all of his evidence, some of them are really rough, okay?
Yeah.
Really rough, all right? And it kind of brings into question everything the man said, okay? I mean, shoot, the man even went on Survivor Man Bigfoot for multiple episodes with Les Stroud, okay? And Les Stroud's takeaway was that this man may or may not have hoaxed. He's like, not entirely sure how much I feel about that, but he's like, I don't feel like the man is malicious in what he's doing. He definitely believes that the phenomenon is real. He definitely believes that it's happening in his area. But also, he's one of the types that everything is Bigfoot. He's clearly obsessed. So, whether or not you believe what's going on in his area is real, he believes it's real. So, there's a lot of evidence that he puts forward that some people are going to be like, oh yeah, that looks really good. But, like, a lot of people think it's sketchy. Probably more than the people that believe in it. And, like, this might be the oldest evidence we have of something like this happening in the Bigfoot world, where if the documentary is true, and this is a hoaxed video, the Patterson Gimlin film, then what we really have is a man who was clearly obsessed with Bigfoot and proving that it was real, going out and making a video claiming that he had a sighting in order to blow up media attention towards the subject in order to get a movement going. That was obviously what they did with it anyway. So, like, even if it was a fake, apparently the end goal was it to bring the subject of Bigfoot into living rooms everywhere, to get people thinking about it, right? So, in a way, either live or real or fake, the film accomplished its purpose, right?
Oh, absolutely.
And it got people thinking. Now, the problem with that is that if it is really a hoax, then we're continuing this trope and trend that we've had on the show 100 times, where people like to come up to us and they're like, hey, if Bigfoot is real, then why are there so many sightings all the time? And I think the long and the short of it is a lot of these aren't real. A lot of these are people just pranking or people hoaxing something and just trying to get a rise out of somebody or trying to get in the news somewhere. And it's muddling the water for scientific research to get in here and actually put a definitive answer on it. And yeah, you're getting it into more TVs, like, or more radios across the nation. Yeah, but like, you're also giving people fake evidence to latch onto for 60 years. Right? Like, that's nuts. But let's see here. Myth, you got something you want to say?
Yeah. Another thing is, like, with a lot of the sightings happening just worldwide, I'm not gonna say worldwide, but like across the map in general, if you see something that everyone already has a tough time believing and you go and tell someone, they're less likely to believe you rather than you actually experiencing a real, like, you can experience the real thing and then it can be proven to be untrue. Like what you saw was invalid. Or you can see something and then there be no evidence of anything and you still have no relative proof to show for anything. So like at the end of the day, all the sightings are still happening because if you look at it from this perspective, if I'm Bigfoot and I've had any time to have the capability to gain cognitive thinking, okay, humans are very stupid across the board. If one or two of them see me here and there, they're going to go tell someone, no one's going to believe them, blah, blah, blah. Because we don't know the level of intelligence for a Sasquatch whatsoever. We can guess, wonder, take estimates, whatever, but the true level of knowledge that it obtains is unknown to us. We go based off of what we have proof of, but we have very little proof of anything because it's not a lot of people that can say, I sat down and observed a Bigfoot in close proximity and I'm alive to tell the story without there
Right.
being any kind of controversy.
Exactly. And it's going to be harder for people to believe people the more fakes come out, right? But like, it's important to separate the wheat from the chaff, so to speak. And it's important to make that distinction that, yes, fakes do exist in the space. Yes, people do try to peddle this snake oil salesman type stuff where they act like they're the people that have all the answers on Bigfoot. And if you want to know about the Sasquatch, you have to listen to me. But also, I sell $4,000 private paid camping trips where you can go out and see Bigfoot. You know what I'm saying? Like, you got to watch out for them. Not only because that's a good way of losing your money, but because they ruin all of the work that people that really are passionate about the projects and are passionate about the science and are passionate about answers go out every day to try and find.
Absolutely.
And like, that's something that we want to get out there, and we want to make sure that we're kind of at the forefront of this as well, because like, even as a budding research organization that focuses mostly on data analytics, it's becoming more and more plain and obvious to us that things are really starting to line up as a great ape kind of profile with Sasquatch or Bigfoot, whatever you want to call it, because if you factor in the point that a lot of these sightings that come out, the thousands and thousands of them that come out a year and are reported to all of these Bigfoot research organizations or to local news or whoever, if 90% of them are fake every year, we really have 100 across the entire continental United States that might be more true than 90% of it. And then even then, they might have seen something definitive, so you got to cut that down, right? So, like, the amount of sightings that are probably true, that have a definitive visual identification on something that resembles a Bigfoot, are probably less than a dozen a year, when you really look at it, right? Across one of the largest land masses on the planet. So, in my mind, that actually lines up more with how great apes work, how the research behind great apes has happened over the years. Like Jane Goodall, the breakthroughs that she made with chimpanzees were so big because up until her, we had no idea how to approach colonies of chimpanzees or any great ape in their home territory to study them in their own habitat. We had to have them either brought in and put in a zoo or something to study them, or something else, right? Like, it took us a lot of trial and error in order to basically court these monkeys into letting us observe them in their territory. And
Absolutely.
now we have working relationships with multiple chimpanzee tribes across Africa and different types of primate tribes across the world, right? But this is because one lady decided to go and do something everybody thought was crazy and took a objective look at this and said, hey, maybe we have to rewrite the book on what this means and what to do with this information. So
now the question becomes, when will that watershed moment happen for Bigfoot? We don't know. And is the PG film truly a hoax? We also won't know until we're able to get our eyes on capturing Bigfoot. And even then, there's no guarantee that it will actually provide the answers that it promises. And I think that's a good thought to leave this off on. Wouldn't you agree?
Mm-hmm. I'll let Myth, if you've got anything else you want to add before we wrap up.
You know what? I got something.
Fire away.
Be open-minded to everything and be willing to receive whatever is out there as far as just observing the film and digesting whatever's going on. I know there are people that are deeply like ingrained into the society of like what is going on with Bigfoot. And I need all of you to like genuinely open your mind and open your hearts to the idea of the fact that even if it's not a hoax, or if something looks like it's less than what we originally anticipated for it to be, that it's not a letdown. We still have an entire community, an entire society of us that are vastly interested, vastly involved, vastly in love with this concept. And maybe without this film, there would not be as much of a heavy influence. So regardless, we can be thankful, we can be open-minded, and I think that's the best way for me to end this.
Right.
Absolutely.
And I think I'll bring one up. Even if this film is fake, it was based on a sworn affidavit that come out of Canada.
Absolutely.
So, like, if it was fake, it was based on a man that went ahead of a court and said, Judge, I'm willing to put this on paper that I swear in front of you and me and God that this is real.
What's the old saying? In every myth, there's a grain of truth, or something like that.
Right?
Yes, yes, yes.
But you're right. I think this is a good place to leave it off. We're going to update this once the film comes out. And I think we're going to go catch a film ourselves, guys. But
Absolutely.
thank you all for joining us. We're the Southeast Bigfoot Research Organization. If you like the video, you know what to do. Comment, subscribe. Let's have a conversation down below. And share us with your Bigfoot friends. Because we're trying to bring another level-headed idea into the conversation. Hopefully we're doing this right. Let us know if we are. But until next time, we'll have our latest video posted up here for you guys to click on above. So thank you guys. Y'all have a wonderful night, and we'll talk to you later. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.